Mama, I got bad news, bad news. I've been rolling with some bad dudes, bad dudes. I've been trying to get a bag.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Ashes to Awesome podcast, Rising in Recovery. Our podcast provides light, hope, and understanding about addictions and mental health to people living within that life and the people who love them. Today's episode is brought to you by Yacha Treatment Centers in Phuket, Thailand. They are a clinic run by clinicians, not a business run by businessmen. And they know that where addiction is the smoke, trauma is the fire. Learn more at yatracenters.com. That's yatracentre.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ashes to Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFLange, and with me in virtual studio today is a special guest, Joy Harrison. How are you doing today, Joy?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Chuck.
Thanks for coming on and being willing to share your story. And to the listeners, to the watchers, Joy lost her son to addiction some time ago. I guess it was in 2021. 21 it was. Okay. So she's here to share a story of, that story and just as much, if not more so, who he was. So, Joy, I'd just like to get started with, where's the story start for you? And let's kind of go from there. Yeah.
Well, my son was an amazing kid. I'm sure every mom says that. I remember when he was about 7 and he jumped into the car line and he told me, "Mom, I'm going to be president of the United States one day."
Oh, lofty.
And, I remember that miracle boy. I was told after he was born I was told at 9 months, "Now that you've gotten this far, we'll tell you that we didn't think you were ever going to carry him to term."
Wow.
And so he was my miracle child. And he was so smart. He played multiple instruments, picked him up with nothing. I didn't even know he had the talent, but he did. Played the viola and the guitar and the drums. And one of the stories from school was he didn't want to go back the second year to band to play the drums. And I asked him why, and he said, "Because they bully me." And we were in a school that he was in the gifted program, and then there was also a FAME program, fine arts. Okay. And the fine arts kids were required, but the gate kids, it was a choice. And he chose to be in the band to play the drums. And the band director said, "Oh, well, the reason they bully him is because they don't get a choice, but they're no good. And he's great, and he has a choice." Okay. And so he went back thinking he was the big guy in the band now. and so, but he was really smart. He had a perfect ACT. He had...
ACT for listeners that aren't...
You have SATs and ACTs that you take for college entrance boards. And the ACT is usually for the left brain kid with math and science skills. And he worked hard. At first he scored not low, but not perfect. But then he went on to be, have a great score and could have gotten into any college he probably applied to. He chose the party one.
Mm-hmm. I'm familiar.
Unfortunately.
I went there too. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in a fraternity. He was loved by so many people. I don't think he realized how many people, thought of him. And what I found amazing when we were at his service and afterwards, that people contacted me and said that they were high school friends and they'd been out of school for maybe 4 or 5 years. And he still would at least once a month contact all of his friends and just say, "Hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay?"
Wow.
And there were so many people that came back and brought these stories. "Oh yeah, I just talked to him last week." I didn't even know he'd talked to that person since high school, let alone that he had been, but they all said the same thing.
To who he was, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, he just would always just randomly check up on them. Or if they posted something on their Facebook page about how they got an award or their girlfriend or something, he'd send them a message and say, "Oh, congratulations, that's really great." And so that was something Mom didn't know was going on in the background, but it speaks to him volumes how he was just a friend to all. If he met you in the bathroom at the gas station, you were his best buddy. It's like you had known him your whole life, and he'd come walking out of the store with you, and he'd give the guy a hug, and he'd get back in the car, and I'd go, "Who's that?" And he goes, "Oh, his name's Tim, blah, 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 blah." And I was going, "Oh, well, where do you know him from?" "Oh, I just met him inside." And, and he would often say, "I got that from you, though, Mom." And so, I don't know. When he was a sophomore in high school, I guess that's when the addiction story begins.
Okay.
He played football. He had a concussion. One stroke of the doctor's pen said, "Hey, dude, you don't get to play sports ever again. Because if you get hit again, that could be it." And so he lost that. And in Texas, where I'm from, or where we're from, that's a lifestyle. It's not a sport, it's a lifestyle. And so he lost that, and then he lost that friend base that went with that. And then there were some other things that happened. He had his first girlfriend, his first, and his first breakup. And then my aunt, which was like the grandmother figure to them, passed away. And he had a suicide attempt. And he went into the program, the 8-week thing. And they prescribed alprazolam, or Xanax for the generic of
And he's
form.
how old, sorry, at this time?
He was 15. And
Okay.
I've now realized and found out all about Xanax. And of course, it's a cycle, because it just continues. So the 9 pills became the 15, to become the 20, to become the 30, to, okay, that's not enough. I need to go on the street and find them.
Yeah.
And so that became his nemesis, that Xanax, and then future Xanax bars. And then that last one that he took that morning wasn't Xanax. It was fentanyl. And I believe, based on everything I've pieced together, he went into the restroom, took it, and then made it to his floor. And that's it. And so it was a very fast, once he took that fentanyl. He did take some of the others, but that's that kicker of that pack of pills that he got, was that some were the bars, some were alprazolam, some were Xanax. And he took those, and, he continued through the evening partying with that. But that last one was not. It was something else. And so that's how I lost him on May 14th. This year, it had been 2 years on Mother's Day. I celebrated this 2-year angelversary on Mother's Day this year. And, it was hard, and then it was easy too. You know what I mean? There was just a lot of different back and forth emotions as to, all of this. I still will never know exactly what happened that day. Obviously, no one will. The dog doesn't talk. I don't know why, but he doesn't. And but it all began with that prescription that a doctor gave him, and then it progressed through the years.
So,
and
you say it progressed through the years. Was it, I hate using the word typical, but that's what comes to mind. Was it that typical kind of addict story, or was he a big part of the family? Did he end up, ostracized the way that happens sometimes? Or can you kind of fill in some of those years for us?
Yeah. So he went off to college, and in November of so that would have been 2015, he went to college. And in November of 2015, I actually was at a college fair, and he called me, and he was all so excited and sent me photos, and he said, "Oh, this is where we're going to live next year. We are going to rent this apartment together." And he and 2 other members of his fraternity were going to rent this place. They signed their lease, ahead of the schedule. They had a big party because they weren't even built yet, these house apartments that they were going to live in. And so the place had models, and then they had a party for all of the students, trying to get people to rent there the next year. And so they signed their contract. It was going to be 3 of them. They were all excited over it. And he actually had a court date for a ticket that he had gotten on Monday. And I went up on Saturday to pick him up. And I was about halfway there, and I got a phone call that said that one of the young men that he had signed with, Bradley, had been found unresponsive that morning. Oh. And he passed away. And that was who my son at the time considered his best friend. That was his best bud. He did not do well with his death. And although he stayed at school, he did not go to class, and he did not go take his finals. And I didn't find that out until after he came home for Christmas break. So we took him back to take those finals to get rid of that semester, but we chose that he should stay at home for a semester to try to get his head back because of the previous mental health issues. We felt that he needed that. And that was maybe a good idea, maybe not a good idea, because, he started hanging around with the wrong type of people. And this one particular individual who was the supplier, or who was the catalyst to getting bars versus prescribed alprazolam, really took him down quite a path there. Mm-hmm. And then he got his crap back together for the summer, made straight A's. We sent him back to school. He made straight A's. He did absolutely wonderful.
Was he using during that time?
Not during that time. That was a break. Okay. That was a break period, yes. Okay. We had gotten him sober, basically, and he was not using.
Was that with the help of a program or anything? Or sorry to interrupt. I'm just
no. That's fine. You can interrupt. No, actually, that one was not with a program.
Okay.
That one was just he was seeing a psychologist, but not for the addiction, just for the mental health, and it just was a good old fashioned love and everything. And then he went back to school, and he got a roommate, and they started using tremendously. And that was all she wrote for that story, because he really was addicted. I got phone calls from people that said, you need to send your son to a program.
Okay.
And he came home, he worked for a while, he floundered for a while, it was an off and on type of thing. He wrecked several vehicles, he got in trouble with the cops. We went back and forth with all of that stuff. In 2018, he lost another friend to an overdose. By October of 2018, he had lost 7 friends to addiction issues. I had sat with 5 different sets of parents and helped pick out clothing and talked and whatever. And then I actually spoke to that fact to the kids at the school that I was substituting in. And then in 2019, a lot of different things occurred. He did go in for mental health because of a suicide thing. And then in the end of 2019, he got arrested in October. And we didn't bail him out. We told him he had to stay.
Can I ask what he was arrested for?
He had found a way to purchase a large amount of those bars.
Okay.
Because he didn't have transportation. He was finding it hard to get what he wanted, and he was self-medicating. Yeah. And so he went out and purchased a large sum. Yeah. And when he got caught, which I believe he was set up for, but I mean, he had them, but I'm just saying that the child that didn't get in any trouble and didn't get a ticket,
but
The following is a national emergency.
A new study out shows there may be gross underreporting of opioid-related deaths, meaning the opioid crisis may be
overdose
far
deaths
worse
have
than
been
initially
caused by
thought.
toxic supply of street drugs.
Devastating effects on families and communities across this country.
1 Canadian dies approximately every 53 minutes to overdose. That's 27 deaths every day and 837 deaths each month. That makes 405% more deaths to overdose than car accidents in 2022. Are you listening now? So who does this affect? Everyone from pro athletes to celebrities to business people and kids. This crisis affects us all, with 77% of overdoses happening in people's homes. So how did we get here?
These drugs were designed to ease pain, but their overuse has caused hundreds of thousands of Canadians to become addicted.
Most addictions begin with prescription opiates, but later shift to unregulated substances like heroin and fentanyl due to availability and cost. This is a huge problem.
The vast majority of overdose deaths are caused by a toxic street drug supply.
The National Overdose Response Service is a 24-hour phone line providing anonymous support for substance users. NORS will co-create safety plans, dispatch EMS, or contact someone to administer naloxone without involving EMS. Please don't use alone. If using in the USA, please call Never Use Alone and download the Brave app.
When he got caught, he had enough there that they consider it manufacturing and distribution. But like I said, and even the officer said, I don't think he's selling them. I think he was using them.
Yeah.
You know, like he even said to me, he goes, no, I think he was self-medicating and he was stockpiling. So he had what he needed.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't have any way of getting anywhere. He didn't have any way of doing anything. So I think that's what he was doing. He was stockpiling, so he had a supply.
Okay.
And, but anyway, he went into prison. You know, he went into jail. We told him we weren't going to let him out. But there had been a lot of things occur in our family that year. I had had surgery. Jacob had been in the mental health facility. My husband had had surgery. And so literally we had no out-of-pocket cost, anything left. And so we looked into, we had been recommended to La Hacienda in Kerrville. Yeah. And we looked into it and we talked to them, and it literally, the insurance covered everything and we had no out-of-pocket cost. And so for that reason, we said, okay, we'll get him out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So we bailed him out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We got him a haircut. We got clothes ready. We went to the doctors and did what we had to do. He had to go see probation, so we did that. Like, we did everything on Wednesday we could. We had our last Thanksgiving together. And then on Friday morning at 6 a.m., we drove him to Kerrville. Okay. And dropped him off. And he was in a program. And it was good. It was a good program. And he came home and he was sober. He went to sober living. And
so, I can, what made that program good in your mind, in his mind, and speak for him?
I'm not sure they work with them. They, they have group sessions, they have individual sessions. They did the family sessions where we came down for a week and had a program with them. And you talk about a lot of things in that family session, like the triggers and how does it make the parent, how did it make me feel? So like one of the questions, which I thought was, when did you feel the safest regarding your child? And I said, when he's in jail, which, that says it all. Like, every siren I heard, I thought they were headed to me. Every time the phone rang, I jumped because it was going to be the other shoe falling. And, it just kind of that was the way I lived my life back then, not knowing what was the next thing going to be. It's difficult for the family to watch their child go for a mom, especially to watch their child just
difficult
go down
I'll
that
interrupt
still.
again. As the family, do you feel that you experienced stigma that made it hard for you to find people to talk to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was PTA president,
Okay.
and my son's first arrest, was marijuana, just a simple thing, and a misdemeanor. And yet my principal called my board in and had me resign
Wow.
because I wasn't the role model that they wanted.
That says it all right there.
It says it all right there.
That is, it's almost, and that's not that long ago. How long ago is that?
That would have been in 2014 that occurred.
Okay. Well, I like to think a lot has changed since then.
I would like to think so too.
I don't know that it has. And of course, things are different in your part of the world than they are in my part of the world. So it's, I can't really say for sure, but wow, that it says it all. And I really hope things have changed, that it's not
I kind of
quite like
too.
that anymore.
I kind of
right?
do too.
I feel the stigma it's probably the worst enemy we have in all of it. Right?
Well,
if we can't talk about it, we can't understand it.
I think that the stigma is not as bad for me, even though people don't want to talk to me about it. But I think the stigma is worse for those other people that choose to ignore it, because you can't say not my child.
Yeah.
You can't. No. And then it happens to not my child, and they're like, well, I don't understand. I don't know what happened. I don't know how this happened. And I'm like, no, that's what I try to tell people. It touches every family. It touches the poor. It touches the rich. It touches the religious. It touches
100%.
It's not just single file. Like there's a clear
profile or something. No,
there's not a clear cut list of things. Okay, this is it. Here I was so active in my children's lives. Yeah. So active. Yeah. And yet, I was very active, and I was there and present, and yet I still had that son who
ended up on that path, right?
Right.
So.
Well, 2020 ruined everything, because even though he came home and went to sober living, 2020 occurred, and then that brought, I'm sorry, it made it easy for drug dealers. They could drive up to your house, walk up to your door, knock on the door, and hand you your drugs and get their money, because everybody was delivering everything, and so nobody knew that they were the drug dealers delivering. They thought they were your groceries or your medicines or your whatever it was.
The other thing that COVID did was the payments that were coming from the governments, right?
Yes.
I mean, everybody.
So people had money and they were able to do it, but it did. Yeah. It made the drug business. My son even said that. Somebody came to the door and I said, "Oh, did you order food?" And he's like, "No, I got." And I was like, "Dude, come on."
Right. Yeah.
And so, like I said, it was just that. And he kept calling them blips. I had a blip. I'm sorry, Mom. And they weren't good. They were bad ones. And, 2020 was a really bad year for his blips. And then on October 9th, and no offense, he had a young lady that was in his life. And on October 9th, he was slurring his words badly. And I walked in on him, I for lack of better sharing, but he was urinating on the floor in the bathroom, not even at the toilet. And I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What do you mean? Why are you in my bathroom?" Well, the door is wide open. And he was walking like if he had polio across the floor. And I was trying to assess the situation, and she threw my phone, and some other things occurred, and I finally found the drugs, and I took them, and I took them away. I didn't take them. And clarifying that one for everybody. And then, his dad was on the phone with me, and he's like, "I'm calling 911." And she wasn't going to let me call 911. And so she was going to take my phone again. And I said, "No, I need you to read this." And she read what I showed her, and it says how to know that they're overdosing on alprazolam.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, he's doing all 5 of those. Yes, that's what I'm trying to tell you. And so then she kind of was like, oh, I guess, so then the police showed up with the ambulance and he was taken away. And that one was a bad one. They felt there was some kidney stuff and some other things. And the doctor, he was going to be in the hospital for like 5 to 7 days. And the doctor said, I'd like to send him to the mental facility again. And I said, I don't understand. He needs to go to rehab. They need to send him to a drug rehabilitation program, not to whatever. Because it was 2020, La Hacienda did not respond. So I'm assuming they were closed. And I did find another one down in, oh gosh, I don't even know the name of this city now. Anyway, he did go to that one. He was there for 55 days. He had one of the most wonderful counselors there that she worked through a lot of his triggers and his points. And then he came home and he was 103 days sober.
Okay.
And that girl showed back up.
Yeah.
And that was the end because everything went, there was never a regaining after that. And he did go back to rehab one more time, but he had no intention of doing. He literally, I was told he literally slept. He would show up for his stuff, but he did not participate. And he said, I've already gone through all of this. I'm not doing this again.
Oh, jeez.
And so basically he went for 30 days. He was home for 20 minutes and went and got high. And was high the entire first weekend. And for the first time, his father had he had doctor's appointments, so he was he was at the house. And for the first time, he got to see firsthand what these blips look like and how his anger and how all this stuff. Because up to that, it was me calling him and complaining and crying and, telling him what was going on. And he had never really witnessed one in person.
It's kind of easy in human nature even to kind of minimize that in your own mind.
Oh, yeah, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so he got to see it firsthand, and then he was very apologetic. He's like, I'm so sorry. I really didn't have any idea.
Okay, so the validation that must have brought for you.
Oh, it was, yes. It was a moment in
experience, eh? No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
To say the least. Yeah, because up to that point, I felt very isolated and very alone because I was, I had other people that were going through similar things that I could talk to, but for the most part,
yeah, right.
I saw the eyes rolling and the head shaking and the, when you're talking and, and then him,
Terrifying.
There was no validation about that I was going through anything. Well, I used to get it's all me. I caused it all. Because that's what that's what his dad would always say. It must have been you.
There isn't enough guilt
you must
involved.
have said something. You must have did something.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't understand. I'm not. It's not me. And so that was validation that I'm sorry that I didn't realize what you were going through. Yes. And so, but, and then we the day before I left was that whole week had been, we had a blip on Wednesday before Mother's Day that week. And Mother's Day was the 8th of May that year. Yeah. And so approximately the 6th, he had this, it was a blip. And we had gotten through it. And he came in that morning and said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, blah, blah, blah. I don't have anything else. I've gotten rid of everything. And I said, okay. And literally he was sober that whole week. And on Mother's Day was good. I got flowers. He fixed dinner for me. He did, gave me a card, wrote me this beautiful note in it. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful Mother's Day. And he was sober the whole week. And so on Wednesday night, the girlfriend and him got into a fight. Yeah. And they were outside yelling at each other at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I went out and said, you guys got to come inside. You can't be doing this in the street. We have neighbors. And she proceeded to tell me that she was going to leave by Sunday. She wouldn't be there when I got back because they were going to take a break because they needed a break from each other and they both needed to get sober and stay sober.
Hey guys, I hate to interrupt, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you to check out the swag shop on our website. That's www.a2apodcast.com/swag. We've got all sorts of new hoodies, t-shirts, tank tops, anything you can think of, really good. And if we don't have what you're looking for, just drop me a line. Customization is absolutely free. And you can DM me on any of the social medias or email me at ashleswellspodcast@gmail.com. Check it out. We love to see people wearing our swag, and it helps get the message out. Thanks, guys. Now back to the show.
And I said, that's wonderful. I'm so glad y'all were sober this week. This week has been a good week, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm so proud of both of you, went through that whole thing. And so I left Thursday because my daughter was graduating from law school.
Okay.
And I left on Thursday morning, but for whatever reason that morning, I got ready early. I never am ready early, but I was ready early that day. And so I literally had I set my alarm for 8:15 to get up to finish getting everything in the car to leave by 8:30. And it was like 6:30 when I got done. So I had fixed coffee and some food, and I went in and I was sitting and watching TV on my bed. And he came out of his room and went to the restroom. And I said, what are you doing? And he goes, oh my God, Mom, I'm going to the bathroom, obviously, because I came out of my bedroom and I went into the bathroom and now I'm, and like, silly mom, and so then he came into the room and he was standing there talking to me for a couple minutes. And so then he jumped up on the bed and he sat with me. And so he sat with me that whole time, and we sat and talked from that point till 8:15 when my alarm went off. And we talked about doing, vision boards the next week and, having breakfast for dinner because that's something we like to do. And we always watched movies and did snacks. And so that was another thing. We were going to do that on Sunday. And he told me that this movie was coming out on Friday so we could watch it on Sunday. And I said, yeah, that sounds absolutely wonderful. And so he had gotten up and I had gotten up when the alarm went off. And I said, okay, give Mom a hug. And he gave me a hug and told me he loved me. Same vice versa. And then he went back in his room. And so after I got everything ready, I went and knocked on his door and I said, okay, I'm leaving now. And so he got up and he came and he gave me a hug, said, I love you. And then as I walked away, he came behind me and gave me another hug, which is something he liked to do. And then he actually followed me out to the car, which is something I would never have expected him to ever do. And we gave each other hugs in the garage again and said, I love you. And that was the last time, because when he passed the next morning, and when I got home, he was gone. I think the big realization, I lost it when I was told, obviously. I don't really kind of remember. There's a lot that's hazy during that period of time. But when I got home, his car was parked in the middle. It was weirdly parked in the middle of the driveway. And so we couldn't get our cars in the driveway, nor could we get any cars that were in the driveway out. So we were going to have to find his keys. And so we had made a deal. We weren't going in there till Sunday, but because of the car, we were going to have to go in there. So his dad went to get food and I went in the room to try to find the keys. And I think that was the biggest realization at that moment of time in opening that door, was seeing his earrings, his bracelet, and his necklace sitting on the corner of the bed. Because then this was real. Because he wouldn't have been without those. And so, sorry. Me too.
Sorry. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that was the point that all of this was real. This drug addiction of his had finally taken him. And until we got when we got the report and it was fentanyl, it's funny because we had these conversations. We were talking about how it's in everything.
Yeah.
And so to me, and he said, I know, Mom, I only get from, and so I think that's part of this, is that I think that there's someone out there that was his friend that gave him this.
Yeah. Right. Well, and probably not knowingly though either, right?
Maybe.
It's the guy with the pill. The guy with the pill press is the guy that's putting fentanyl in it.
Yeah, and
right?
that's way up the line, I'm sure.
Yeah, so.
I mean,
if
this
for
was
whatever
not.
comfort,
This wasn't that bust buy that he made back when he bought the large amount. This was a tiny. He bought.
Yeah, right.
And, I mean, there were 3 left, so he didn't buy very much.
And it's, what I like to tell people or explain to people is that most dealers are just street level guys trying to supply their own addictions. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not.
If I sell 10, then I can buy what I need to use.
The vast majority of dealers, that's all they're doing, right? Is rather than stealing, they're
so
selling
back in the day when my son was just smoking pot, that was kind of his thing. He sold a little bit to smoke a little bit.
Yeah, I was like the first guy to buy a gram and make 3 joints so I could sell them and whatever, right? That kind of thing.
So, and that's what he told me. He said, and then he stopped that because I lied to him and told him the cops had him on their radar. And they have your name on the list. They're watching you. And I got the SRO to help me at school because I had those connections. And so he said, Jacob, you're on the list. You better watch out because they're watching you. And so he stopped. Well, Mom, back then you could scare them, but later on, not so much. Yeah.
No. I don't imagine.
They were invincible.
So since then, since that horrible day, what's going on with you? What are you doing? What are you, are you in advocacy at all? Are you in,
yes.
Tell me about that.
So I've worked with a few different groups in different areas. While I was still in Texas, because that's where this happened, there's an organization out of the Flower Mound area called Winning the Fight.
Okay.
Wonderful group of people. They, are very supportive of, like they go in and do a monthly dinner, I believe, still with Wham Whiskey and Milk, which is it's for the 18 to 25-year-olds. It is like an AA meeting.
Okay.
And they meet on Friday nights in Preston Presbyterian, I think it is. But it's in Preston area in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah.
They're very large and they're very wonderful for children, children, I'm sorry, they're young adults, but for that set, and they're very, very good. Like they just have some really dynamic meetings for that.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, but Winning the Fight is one out of Flower Mound, like I said, and they're wonderful people there. And then since moving to Tulsa, Oklahoma, I'm with Oklahoma's supporting Oklahomans in the drug epidemic.
Okay.
And so we have done coming up because Red Ribbon Weeks are happening. So the next few weeks are really busy with this because they do assemblies within the schools. Plus we just held a rally on August 31st, which was National Fentanyl Awareness Day.
Overdose Awareness Day, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we particularly are focusing on our fentanyl because that seems to be a huge thing right now.
It's reality.
We just went to the DEA summit last week, and they were talking about it. And I saw an article where they said they have seized so much between the Mexican and the U.S. border, enough to kill every single individual in the United States.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
That's how much they've seized. So, and still there's enough getting over here. So,
we know they're only seizing just a very small portion.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
A fraction of what's actually.
So, I mean, that just says so much. And so I've worked with them and I've kind of struck out on my own now. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing the opposite end of it. I'm not doing the student end of it right now. I'm doing the parent end of it. And so I'll be going back to my old school district. I've reached out to my old school district since that's the one my son was in. And I've said, whatever you want. You want me to talk to counselors? Do you want me to talk to whatever? And so I've reached out to a lot of districts. I do still have those connections in that organization I mentioned earlier that I got fired from. But and I have been reaching out to friends in that group and saying, look, I'd love to come in and talk to parents about this and share my story. And so that's what I've been trying to do.
And has there been some reception for that?
There is. It is even more, it's getting more people want.
Wow,
so I feel like 2 years ago, there was this big resistance to anything. Nobody wanted you to come in and talk about drugs. Even before my son died, I was talking to parents at the conventions about drugs and telling them these are the things I noticed in my home. So if these things are happening in your home, I'm not saying because these things are happening in your home that there's definitely but
there's a red flag there. You might.
But these are red flags,
right?
and if these are happening, then please start talking to your kids, and don't be their friend. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that parents want to be their kids' friends. They don't want to be their, whatever. We've come to a society where everybody, nobody should be punished for anything. There's no punitive.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if they start using drugs and they go into a program, it's punitive.
Yeah.
It's not I think we need to change that, but that's going to require a lot. Because I think that we need to find out why the 3-year-old little boy became an 18-year-old addict. Because that 3-year-old little boy went through something, or that 7-year-old little boy went through something, and that's what led him further down that road.
There's a conversation that I like to have with people about trauma. Right?
Yeah.
Where it's not something that happens to you, it's something that happens within you.
Yes.
Right. So, and I'm just beginning to learn, right? So, my sponsor, Yacha Treatment Center, I've learned a lot from Mike Miller, and from some of the other professionals involved with the show. And something that happens to a 3-year-old or a 7-year-old might seem like inconsequential.
They'll get over it. They're young.
Right. But somebody says, well, that was 25 years ago. Or was that 25 years that thing has been wrapping around and snowballing inside somebody's brain? Right. So what was something inconsequential, which was minor, it was a 3-year-old who, but everything's relative, to a 3-year-old, losing his toy is as bad as a 40-year-old losing his job. Right. And so there's a trauma thing that happens there, and it begins to turn and build inside your brain. And until you address those things, you don't have a chance. Right. That's.
And it's sometimes hard to turn off. My son brought up at 21 or 22 that I told him to go get a grocery cart because he was going to be homeless when he was older.
Yeah.
So it was a motivation. Well, it was a motivational speech because he turned to me. In the class that he was in, the teacher drops 1 grade.
Yeah.
And he just decided he wasn't going to do this paper. And he goes, it's okay. It's not going to affect my grade. I still have an A if I don't do this because she's dropping 1. And I likened it to football. And I said, are you going to run to the 10-yard line and say, oh, well, that was good enough? Or are you going to go across and get the touchdown? And that was my analogy. And he said, well, I just don't understand because why do I have to work harder when I don't have to? And I couldn't come up with anything. I said, well, if that's your attitude, you might as well go find a grocery cart and start decorating it because, with that attitude, you're not getting anywhere in life. And of course, that was just a motivational analogy that I was making. Of course, that stuck with him like forever. And when he was 21, he brought that back up. Oh my God, Mom, you told me to go get a grocery cart because I was going to be homeless. And I was like that. Even the doctor tried to explain to him. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But
right. I get it.
Happens within you. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's refreshing that you do get that.
Yes.
Because a lot of people will go the rest of their lives without understanding that those things, something triggers, something affects you, but you don't. Yeah, right.
And we can't, and each individual is individual. So what I have as a trigger may not be what someone else has as a trigger,
Right. So
and
it seems like yeah. What do you do? How do you possibly fight a fight like that where you can't, you have
Well,
no
you
idea
can't.
ever, right?
I had someone tell me the other day, because I was complaining about something that happened in service, that their employee had done, and not in a real negative way, but still yet whatever. And he said, okay, so I can't go back and change anything that's happened. It's impossible.
Yeah.
What I can do is take what you're telling me, try to change things that occur in the future, and learn from what you're telling me.
Yeah.
And I liked that. That was, that was the best handling of that situation, because you're right. You can't change what's happened in the past, but you can look at what's happened and make something better.
And the only thing you can control in the entire world is how you react. That's
Correct.
the only thing in your control, right? At the end of the day, and hey, right? It's a lesson that takes
But I think that there's still a stigma, and my going out and telling this story is, I don't know. Hopefully they'll relate. Hopefully they'll get that, it could be your child,
so.
and
that's it, right? That's it. Yeah.
I don't want it to be your child. I want you to see the signs. I want them to be clear, and I want you to never join my club, because it's not something I wanted. It's not something, even though I had an addict for a child, it was not something that I ever thought was truly going to happen. I mean, I think in the back of my mind, I knew it was always a possibility.
Yeah.
And there was always a fear that call was going to come, or that knock was going to come at the door. But, until it happens, you have no idea. And the pain that comes with that is just mind-blowing, like an elephant on your chest, and there's no way to move.
I can't. We've
And
done
so
20 some odd memorial episodes on this show now, and still,
yeah,
I can't begin to imagine.
and that's only a handful.
Right. Oh, it's not even a drop it's not even a drop inside the drops of the buckets, right? Like it's
I saw a
unfortunately.
statistic the other day that was 111,783 or something like that
Last
in the year. Yeah, in 22.
Yeah.
And they said
to put it in perspective, a 747 falls out of the sky every single day.
Yeah.
That's how many people die.
Well, they said
As a
every
result,
3
right.
minutes now someone dies of an overdose.
And what frustrates me, and this is stigma driven, is anything else. COVID never even got close to those numbers.
No.
And we shut down the world. The economy of the world was shut down. We are just beginning to feel the pain of what happened by shutting down the world. We haven't even dealt with the consequences of that in their entirety yet.
Yep. So we're lucky that some states are starting to, like that drug dealer is now going to get, arrested and charged for murder.
Yeah.
That's happening in multiple states now, which is really great.
Yes,
Texas just did that. Oklahoma, some counties have done that, not all of Oklahoma. But Oklahoma hands out naloxone like it's water.
Yeah.
And you just have to text them and sign a thing and say yes and give them your address, and they'll send it right to your home for you.
And do you not agree with that as policy?
Oh, no, I agree that is positive. Absolutely.
Oh, okay, good. I was like,
no. I think I think everyone should carry. I think everyone should have naloxone. I have one in the drawer over there. I have one in my car, and then there's one in my purse that I always carry.
Which is the perfect time for a PSA. So we'll be right back after this.
And now for a quick PSA brought to you by Together We Can. Grief isn't limited to the loss of a loved one. For all the support you need, TWC offers a grief and loss support and education group offered free of charge. Learn more at twcrecoverylife.org.
Hey everyone, this is Ryan Bathgate from Kaleidoscope Wednesdays. I wanted to bring a public service announcement to you today about Narcan, or also known as naloxone. These kits have saved so many lives over the years. I can attest for that. Being in the industry for so long, I can tell you, since we've had the opioid crisis declared in 2016, it has saved thousands of lives, and I've watched it personally save hundreds of lives. These kits are small, easy to use. You can keep them in your glove box or in a cupboard in your home, and you never know when somebody's going to need them. If you have a hard time finding a Narcan kit in your area, just email us here at ashes2awesomepodcast@gmail.com. Throw Narcan in the subject line, tell us where you are, and we'll do the legwork to find that for you. If you wanted to send me a question for my Kaleidoscope Wednesdays, again, email ashes2awesomepodcast@gmail.com. We will read that question on air, and I'll do my best to answer it in a comprehensive way. That's all I have for now, and we'll go back to the show.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this.
All right.
Okay, so we're back from the break. During the break, you were telling me about using your own Narcan naloxone, whatever you want to call it. Tell us about that, because it's a perfect example of why we have that PSA, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
So the other night I was taking some boxes out to my storage, and there was a car, and there was like 20 cars backed up behind him because he was turning, or I thought he was turning. And I remember coming back up on the porch and going, he doesn't even have his turn signal on. Why is he not putting his turn signal on to turn? So I came back out with another box. I came back up on the porch, and as I was walking up the porch, I'm going, wait, there's no vehicles coming. There's no cars. Like, why is he not turning? And so it hit me. So I ran down the sidewalk to look in the vehicle, and he was slumped over into the other seat. And I motioned to the cars that were behind him to go around, and I ran in real quick, and I got my Narcan out of the drawer, and I ran back out, and a car had stopped behind him, and I got to the sidewalk, and the lady goes, oh my God, thank God, I'm a nurse, let me do this. And so, so she took my Narcan, even though I could have done it, but she took it, and she, did what she had to do with him. And then 2 other men had stopped, and they got him out of the car. And then the police officer stopped behind them, and then they pushed, I moved the car. I got in the car and drove it over to the side street, and then the ambulances. I don't know what happened after that. Sorry, I don't have the rest of the story, but
that's okay.
At that point, I was done with my job, but I had provided Narcan, and
did he do we know if he lived?
Well, all I know is that when she gave it to him, the first one didn't. But then, like I said, the guys put him on the sidewalk, and she was giving him, then she was doing compressions. And then she gave him the second one, and I did see him go, which it's like, right. So
that's somebody's son, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's somebody's someone. That's what I say constantly. And I think that's another thing that, like, our officers and first responders, they need to realize that these are somebody's someone. And I get it. Yeah. I get it. You're so tired. Right. I get it. You're so tired of seeing these overdoses. But, some mama is going to cry her eyes out over this. And so you need to have as much compassion as you can possibly have in that being the first one on scene.
Right.
And, I remember my son had, at one point they had to come to a hotel for him. And, of course, he survived that one. And that was what the officer said. He, when he was standing there, he was going, oh, my God, another blah, 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 and that got back to me because one of his friends was there and said, yeah, well, the officer, I don't think he really cared whether he, or not, because he made this comment. Well, I know those people at that police department because I've worked with them with the Angel Trees, with our school district and everything. And so I went in there and I said, I want a meeting. And Chief was like, wait, what's your, what's your agenda? He knew me. He knew what, and I said, well, because, and he goes, okay. He let me go before their meeting, both in the morning and in the afternoon, and tell them that this is somebody's someone. Like, you all know me. This was my child. I don't know which one of you was there, but this was my child. You know me. Yeah, did that make a difference? And then like every officer in the room were like, that knew me was like, yeah, that would have made a difference. Yeah.
Of course it does.
And
right.
so that's, I can't say enough. And then they also need to know about naloxone and that they should give naloxone immediately to anyone who appears to be in an overdose situation, because it can mean the difference between life or death.
I know in some jurisdictions, law enforcement doesn't give it out because of liability issues or something. And
most of them now carry it, so most of them are permitted to do it. I mean, they don't give it out, but they can use it. Most have been trained now in the use of it, and most have been doing it. But there's still this part of it that they don't understand. Like, if you give it and it's not an opioid, it's not going to do a thing. It's like giving them water.
Yeah,
it's like shooting saline up there.
Yeah,
it's not going to hurt anybody. Right. And I think that's part of their whatever. I think the other part of this is that in some places it's hard to get.
Yes.
So if I'm not going to absolutely know for sure that I'm making a difference, I'm not giving it because I don't want to use it, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. That's like keeping, the bottle of champagne in the back of the thing for a special occasion.
Yeah.
Or the china. I'll give a better one because I don't want to do alcohol. The china is up in the cupboard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't use it because it's only good. It's good china, and you're not going to use it until it's a special occasion. So it collects dust up there for 20 some years because you just never use it.
Yeah. What's the point, right?
What's the point?
So, yeah. I know part of our PSA, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. And, I've, South Africa is the one request that I wasn't able to fill so far. But it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you can't find it for free in your area, we'll find it.
Right.
And if I can't find it, I'll get it to you. Right.
That's what I've told people. People are on sites that I'm on, and they're like, well, I can't get it. And I'm going, where are you at? And I go searching. And then I come back to that person and send them a private message and say, I found a place. Go here. They're ready and waiting for you to come and show up and get your...
Exactly. Right. Yeah. It's just all too important. It's all too important.
It is important. I highly believe you need to have Narcan on hand. I don't have any users in my house anymore.
You still needed it.
I still needed it. Exactly.
100% you still needed it.
Well, I mean, the guy came, I get on my soapbox a lot and I talk about fentanyl and I talk about,
for you,
so I had the air conditioning guy came to, do the annual check, whatever. And so I was having a conversation with him and I said, you should really carry Narcan because you go into homes all the time.
Damn straight.
You don't know what you're going to run into. You should probably carry Narcan. And he's like, oh, no. Because I offered to give him my box. Actually, I was getting ready for an event, so I actually had a case of it. So I offered to give him some. And he said no, he declined it. And so 2 days later, his boss was with him. So I don't know if that had something to do with it or not. He was still in training, so I don't know if that was something. But 2 days later, he showed back up at my door, and he knocked on the door, and he said, ma'am, he goes, I'm sorry to bother you, but could I still have that Narcan you offered me? I said, absolutely, you can have it. And he said, yeah. He said, well, he goes, the story I didn't tell you was that my cousin had died of it several months ago. And I said, it touches so many lives. It does. And he said, and I kept thinking about what you were saying about in my business and going into all these homes. And I thought, you know what? She's absolutely right. Like I go into homes all the time and they're drunk or they're high or they're whatever. And he said, you never know when you're going to need it.
What you've just sparked within me now is all of these companies. All of these companies I'm just thinking about them and going, why don't you have it with you? You are the people that, if anybody,
you're not a first responder, but you're first line because you go into homes every day.
Wow. Okay, well, there's another mission. Oh,
I was on my soapbox in the bank the other day.
Yeah.
I went to do an account, and I was on my soapbox, and I went off on, talking, because you get me started, I'll talk about fentanyl and that all day. And so I was on my soapbox, and I was doing my thing, and when I got down off, there was a gentleman who I apparently had been listening behind me that I didn't know was even there. And he walked over and he introduced himself as the bank manager. And he said, yeah, we actually have naloxone in the back.
Good.
I said, that is I said, I almost wanted to cry. I said, that's amazing. He said, yeah. He said, he goes, I went to this thing, and he said, so now we have a case back there ready and willing. And I said, even though it has an expiration date, I said, don't say it's expired, okay?
Yeah,
because the truth is that in the United States, we have to put dates on everything, but it's still good for
considerably longer.
Yeah, for considerably longer.
Yeah,
and then I explained how if they're doing an overdose and it's not naloxone, he goes, oh, I didn't know that. And I said, yeah. So if it's not an opioid, it's something else, that's okay. You're not going to hurt them. So it's better to give than to not give.
Yeah, right. Err on the side there for sure, right?
And I'm a proponent for it.
That's amazing. Well, we're getting to the hour mark here.
All right.
Which is, typically why we try and keep it. So if you had anything to say to parents, specifically parents, why don't you take a couple minutes and tell us your thoughts there?
Know who your children's friends are. Listen to them when they tell you that things are happening in their school. I'm not going to tell you that having them in sports and doing all that stuff is going to change everything, but keeping them active is a good thing. But it's not going to change everything. And my son's biggest thing that he kept saying was, I'm offered it every day in the locker room, Mom. So it's not the kids you think that are doing it. It's some of the ones you don't expect that are. And don't ever say, not my child.
Enjoy. We haven't said his name.
Jacob.
Okay.
Jacob.
Good.
I haven't said his name.
No. It occurs to me now. I'm like, oh my Lord, right? I don't think so. Anyway, so.
Jacob.
Okay. When was Jacob brought into the world?
8/25/1997.
When did he leave us?
May 14th, 2021.
Okay. Oh, all right. Well, that brings us to my favorite part of the show, and that's Daily Gratitudes.
Today's Daily Gratitudes are brought to you by Revolution Recovery, helping men recover and become their best selves through support and treatment. They've been there, and they understand.
What you got for us for gratitudes today, Joy?
Well, I am ever grateful that I was given him for 23 years, 8 months, and 19 days. I'm grateful that I get to share his story. I'm grateful that I still have my daughter and my granddaughter. I'm grateful that his life changed a few, and I have those stories to be thankful for. And I'm grateful he was that kid that checked up on his friends even after 5 and 6 years.
For myself, I could never be more appreciative than I am when I have a Memorial Mom on that comes on to share that story, because the people we lose are so much more than a statistic or how they passed. And I think this is how we get the attention of people and let them know, right? So, it's by doing things like this. Of course, I'm just appreciative of the story and for you coming on so very, very much, right? As well, and for my final gratitude, it goes out to the listeners, the watchers, our supporters in general. Whatever you guys are doing, please keep doing it. We're getting the message out. If you see us on any of the social medias, give us a like, comment, share. We do enjoy that, especially the Spotify. You can comment on any one of the episodes, and I like to see those things. As well, if you go to our website, 8awaypodcast.com, you can leave a voice message, which is new to me. I didn't even realize we could do that till just recently. So by all means, leave a voice message, and I'm more than happy to put it on the show, as long as it's not too profane, right? Keep the profanity out of it, right? And anytime you do any one of these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. My best life would be to make a humble living, spreading the message. And the message is this: if you are in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start that lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into detox, go to a meeting, do whatever the hell it is you need to do to get that journey started, because it is so much better than the alternative. And if you are the loved one of somebody who is suffering an addiction right now, you've just taken the time to listen to our conversation. If you could just take 1 more minute out of your day and text that person, let them know they are loved. Use the words.
You are loved.
That little glimmer of hope just might be the thing that brings them back.
My body's getting cold, my life is running low. Feel me falling, my life is running out. I pray I make it now, but if I don't, it will be okay. I'll find you another day, and I'm not scared to go. It will be okay. I'll find you another way, and I'm not scared to go, because when I die, I'll be happier in another life. I'll be a ladybug soaring through the sky. Please search for me, please find me. So please don't cry when I land on your arms, spread my wings and fly. So please don't cry.